Sawadee ka! Welcome to Hot Thai Kitchen. Today I'm sharing with you another one of my nostalgic recipes. So when we were growing up as kids, my brother Eddy loved this dish. It was his favorite thing in the world, so we had it all the time. It's a chicken and potato soup. Now I know that doesn't really sound very Thai, and I believe this is actually Thai people's attempt to make a Western style chicken soup. So in Thai, this dish is called sup gai man farang. So soup means soup, gai means chicken, and man farang means potato. So if you've been to Thailand, you might recognize that the word farang actually means Caucasian. It's a term that we use to refer to Caucasians. So man farang basically means a Western potato. It's a very popular dish at home, but not something you'll find in restaurants because it's got such a homey, simple comfort food feel to it, but it's so delicious and really easy. Let's get started. So the chicken that we use for this soup is always some sort of a drum, either drumsticks, the big ones, or drumettes. So when I was growing up, we always used the big drumsticks because it was nice and meaty, so the kids love eating it. But I actually now prefer to use little drumettes because your bone to meat ratio is higher, so you're gonna get a much stronger stock, a more flavorful broth in the end. But you can do either, okay? So I'm just gonna add to this some fish sauce, just to let it marinate for a little bit. You don't have to do this far in advance. Just do it before you start prepping other things. And I like to marinate the wings in something flat because if you put it in a deep bowl, then all the fish sauce will just fall to the bottom and then only bottom 3 pieces get marinated. Okay, so while that's going, let's get our broth started. So I've just got here some plain water, and the reason why I can use plain water is because we're using bone-in chicken. So this is gonna turn into chicken stock. If for some reason you're gonna do boneless chicken, this has to be a good chicken stock. Otherwise, you're gonna get the blandest, least flavorful soup ever. So I'm gonna add some aromatics to this water. Simply some onions that I've cut. And some cilantro stems. You can skip the cilantro stems, you don't have to. And then I'm also gonna add some crushed garlic cloves in there. I'm gonna add some seasoning with soy sauce. And now I'm just gonna bring this to a boil. That's it, super easy. Now it's boiling, I'm going to add my chicken in a way that won't splatter hot liquid in my face. And now if you're thinking, what am I gonna do with all the flat part of my chicken wings? Well, do not worry. I have a recipe for that too, and I will link to it in the description below and up here. Okay, so now you're gonna bring this to a simmer and let it simmer for about 15 minutes. So we're slowly braising the chicken. You want the chicken to be super tender at the end. Also, you need to give it time for the bones to do its magic to flavor the broth. So we're not just going for cooked chicken here. It already smells so comforting with the smell of the chicken stock. Now we're halfway done. At this point, you notice there's floaties on top. If you want, you can go in with a skimmer and just skim them out, but there's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't affect the taste of the soup. So if you don't care, you can just leave it in there. All right, so now we're gonna add in our man farang. So I've got here some potato. I'm using russet just because I like the creaminess. I feel like starchy potato like russet absorbs flavor better, but you gotta be careful with these because they also overcook more quickly, more easily. So if you're afraid of afraid of them turning into mush, use a waxy potato like a Yukon Gold or even red potatoes. Now I'm just gonna press them down. Oh, one thing I almost forgot to do is taste this broth. You want to taste the broth before you add the potatoes because the potatoes want a lot of flavor to absorb, right? So if the broth is under seasoned, the potato is not going to be as flavorful. So just tasting for salt. Oh, it's so good already and it's not even done yet. I will add just a touch of salt. And I like to add salt at this point because I don't want the broth to taste too much like soy sauce or fish sauce. I like the flavor of where it is right now. Also, if you add more soy sauce, the color will be a little darker. So if you want to keep it lighter, then salt works well. But it's up to you. You could do soy sauce. So we're going to let the potatoes go for 10 more minutes. We'll be right back. So it's been 10 minutes. We're almost there. This is looking very beige right now. So the thing that's gonna add it some pops of color and also pops of flavor is tomatoes. I'm just gonna throw in a bunch of tomatoes here. I'm using Roma tomatoes. These are going to cook for 5 more minutes. You want to give it some time to infuse the flavor of the tomatoes in. It's going to just semi fall apart, be really soft and mushy. That is what we are going for. Also going to add a touch of white pepper for a little subtle heat. Ground white pepper, maybe a little more. And I want to stir it in now while I can, because if I wait till the tomatoes are really soft and I try to stir anything, then it's just going to fall apart. Okay, if you've been keeping track, you're going to notice that the total cooking time is 30 minutes, because that's how long the chicken needs. And I've just been adding the potato and the tomatoes accordingly. So if you cut your potatoes bigger, make sure you add them earlier. If you cut them smaller, make sure you add them later. So on and so forth. All right, 5 more minutes and we're done. And we are basically done. So you'll notice the tomatoes are super soft. The skin's starting to peel off, but it's still like holding together in one piece. I'm gonna finish this off with some greenery, some chopped cilantro. You can do green onions if you don't like cilantro. And I'm trying to not to disturb the soup too much, because the tomatoes and the potato, if you stir too much, things start falling apart. And that is it. How good does that look? It's such a comfort food, a homey looking thing. I'm gonna get myself a little bowl here. Now back when I was growing up, we just had this with rice. So my brother used to just pour this all over his rice, but you can eat it as a separate soup in a separate bowl if you want. Eat it right here. Oh, and then the chickens had 30 minutes, so it should just fall off the bone just like that with a spoon. See? Don't need a fork, don't need a knife, don't need nothing. Oh, you can smell that white pepper coming through. Must have another one. Oh, that soup, that broth, I can drink all day. It's like the epitome of comfort food. It's so chickeny, so chickeny. And you didn't even have to make a separate stock, because that much bones would just make you a good stock. You can actually taste a potatoey flavor in the broth itself, so it really does make a difference when you do add potato. A little tartness from the tomatoes, and it's just an all-around incredibly comforting and delicious dish. And it always surprises me how good it is, because it's such a simple thing. You're just throwing common everyday ingredients together. So if you've got kids at home, I can guarantee you they're gonna love this. If you don't have kids at home, I can guarantee you you're gonna love it too. So the recipe, as always, will be on hotthaikitchen.com. When you make it, send me a photo on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. And I am also on Pinterest now, for those of you who are pinners. If you haven't subscribed to the show, make sure you do so you don't miss a recipe. And when you do, click that little bell icon so you get a notification when I post a new video. If you love the show and you want to support us, check out our Patreon link in the description below, and I will see you next time for your next delicious Thai meal.